thank you for joining us today for this virtual volunteer workshop. My name is Deepika and I am the Environmental Project Specialist with the London Environmental Network. So I'm very excited for this event today because we have some great speakers lined up for you guys to learn more about how you can get involved in water stewardship. So also just to let you know, this webinar will be recorded. So if you aren't comfortable turning on your camera or unmuting yourself to ask a question, I totally understand. You'll also have the chat box as an option to ask a question. So here's a general overview of what we will be covering tonight. So first, I'll give you a little background on the importance of Deshkan Zibi, also known as the Antler River or Thames River right here in London. Then I'll give a bit of info on the London Environmental Network and highlighting volunteer opportunities that are available. After that, we will have 3 amazing speakers from organizations involving water stewardship who will share more about what their organization does, some volunteer positions, and some upcoming events that they may have. And after each speaker talks, you will have the opportunity to ask any questions that you may have. I encourage you to use this as a mini networking event. So if you can turn on your camera and introduce yourself, that would be awesome. It just makes the session a bit more interactive and for us to get to know you guys a little bit better. And finally, I will be giving the speakers contact info just in case you have any further questions for them after the session. So yeah, with that, let's get started. So first, I would like to do a land acknowledgement. So we acknowledge the 3 First Nation communities downriver Deshkan Zibi, also known as the Antler River or Thames River. These are Chippewas of the Thames First Nation, Oneida Nation of the Thames, and Munsee Delaware Nation. We strive to work with these communities to continue to listen, learn, and restore the natural area back to its original beauty, support environmental initiatives, and help our communities become climate resilient. So if you would like to read our full land acknowledgement, you could visit our website and find it there. So the river has a long and important history under the local First Nations people. The local river, which is known as the Thames River, originally went by the names Deshkan Zibi or Ashkenaz, both which roughly translate to Antler River. The river supports life for plants, animals, and humans who all use Nibe water to thrive. The river also possesses both spiritual and cultural importance, for Indigenous peoples have occupied the land surrounding the river for at least 10,000 years. So Deshkan Zibi consists of diverse ecosystems that are home to a variety of plant and animal species, many of which are rarely found elsewhere in Canada. So this includes 30 reptile and amphibian species, including the eastern spiny softshell turtle, which is in the top photo. The river also supports one of the most diverse fish populations in Canada with 90 fish species, such as the eastern sand darter, which is in the bottom photo. So I've also compiled a list of online resources about the river and the First Nations communities that have stewarded the land for generations. I will be sending you this list after the workshop, so don't worry about not getting them. So to learn more about the river, you could also check out our podcast series, these 2 episodes in particular. So these episodes talk about water treatment and management from the city and the historical and spiritual relationship that Indigenous peoples have with water. So I encourage you to check them out. So now I'm going to share a bit about what the London Environmental Network does in the community. So we connect, educate, and support individuals and organizations transitioning to a more sustainable future. Our vision is for London to be known as one of the greenest and most resilient cities in Canada. And our mission is to build participation, collaboration, and capacity in our community to co-create positive environmental change. So what does that mean? Day to day, we run programs to build capacity with individuals and organizations for them to make changes in their lifestyles or operations. So we have Green Economy London, which supports businesses and organizations in setting and achieving sustainability targets. Green in the City is a seminar series that explores local issues through a sustainability lens. So these seminars will be coming up in the fall, so keep an eye out for that. Greener Homes London is a new program that we have this year where we do home sustainability audits as well as webinars to help Londoners learn how they can reduce household emissions. The Paved Paradise is another new program that aims to replace underutilized paved sites with native stormwater retentive plants and pollination gardens. Environmental Action Incubator supports 6 environmental community projects each year through funding and project implementation. So for more info and to check out our other programs that we have, you could check out our website. So that's what I'm going to show you right now. I'm just going to stop sharing my presentation and start sharing the website. So here is our website. Lots of good resources here. I'm going to go over some of the main ones that I think would be helpful. So first we have our events calendar, which you could get to by going to get involved, and then events calendar. So here we post events that are coming up, a lot of different kinds of events from our members. So for example, I'm just going to click on the Mission Monarch at Meadowlily. It would list when the event is, how long it is, and an address if it's in person. Also a description and a link to sign up for the event and to get more information. So we update it pretty regularly, so be sure to check back for new events that might be taking place. Yeah, so that was our events calendar. Next, I'm going to show you how you could sign up for our newsletter. So you go to connect at the top here and then click e-newsletter. It's very simple to sign up. Not much information is needed. And I think this is a great way if you want to stay involved with the London Environmental Network and stay updated without having to check our website all the time. You will just get it sent to your email. So yeah, that's our newsletter, how to sign up. I'm going to show you our volunteer opportunities now, which is also under Get Involved. So these are our current volunteer opportunities. I'm just going to click on the Pollinator Pathways Project volunteers as an example. It would have a small description of what the organization is about, some volunteer positions that they may be recruiting for, and also a link to find out more about these opportunities and steps on how to apply. So if you can't find something that you're interested in the volunteer opportunities page, I highly suggest going to our member directory, which you can get to by going to members and then member directory. So our members are organized into categories. So say if I'm really interested in ecosystem health and conservation, I would click on that and it would show all the member organizations within that category. I suggest going through each of these organizations, reading up on them, doing some research, looking at the typical volunteer opportunities that they may have, see if that's interesting to you. And if it is, then you could contact them. There will be a contact email listed under each organization to get more information. So the first organization you reach out to might not work out, but there are 49 member organizations. So I guarantee that you will find something that you're interested in. And yeah, so that's our member directory. So we also have a donation page up here, the green button, since we are a nonprofit and we are a charity now. So if you want to donate, that's the link to that. And I'm just gonna stop sharing this screen and go back to my presentation. So yeah, that was our website. If you want to check out some more resources, there's a bunch of stuff on there. So I highly recommend you check it out. And this is just the list of all the members that we have. So there's bound to be a position that you will be interested in and you would enjoy doing. Okay, so enough from me. I'm going to pass it off to the speakers momentarily. Just want to let you know that when each speaker is done, there will be a 5-minute Q&A session where you will have the chance to ask questions. So you can do that by clicking the reaction button and then raising your hand, after which I will unmute you, and then you could turn on your video and ask a question. You could also type your question out in the chat box if that's something you're more comfortable with. So our first speaker for tonight is Tom Cull from Antler River Rally. Tom is the director of Antler River Rally, a grassroots environmental group he co-founded in 2012 with his partner Miriam Love, which works to protect and restore Deshkan Zibi. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Tom.
Okay, thanks, Deepika. Hi, everyone. Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here. It's great to be here with my fellow panelists, Peter and Natalie. Big thank you to London Environmental Network. Antler River Rally has been a member since its inception, and we are so lucky in this city to have an environmental network like LEN. They have done so much, especially for little groups like the one that I run with my partner, Miriam Love, which is just a grassroots organization. And we're just very lucky to have found LEN and to be under their green umbrella. So it's a privilege to be here tonight and talk to you about what we do. And I just want to say at the outset what is maybe fairly obvious, which is we love volunteers. We need volunteers, and we welcome you to join us in the work we do. So what is the work we do? I'm just going to share my screen here and give a little presentation. Deepika did a nice, okay, slideshow. Sorry, here. Deepika gave us a nice little information, a little introduction about what we are. But yeah, we're a grassroots environmental group that I co-founded with my partner Miriam and our son, who was 2 years old at the time. And we organize monthly cleanups of the river, of Deshkan Zibi or Thames River, Antler River, as it runs through London, Ontario. So we work to promote river health, environmental justice, and ecological sustainability. And this summer is our 10th year anniversary. We started very humbly with a Facebook message that we put out saying, please come down to the river and help us clean up. And one person came to our first cleanup 10 years ago. This was our first year cleanup 10 years ago with our friend Jeff, who showed up, and we had a great day. And in fact, the London Free Press got wind of it, and they came and did a little story. Thames has a Facebook friend, and Antler River Rally was born. And since that time, we have worked with hundreds and hundreds of Londoners, pulling literally hundreds of tons, diverting hundreds of tons of garbage from the river, from our waterways, streams, and environmentally significant areas. We've done interfaith cleanups, we've done children's, summer camps. I go into schools and talk to university students, high school students, public school students all the time. We've worked with Chippewa, the Thames First Nation, and Oneida Nation, doing cleanups, partnering with them to do cleanups. So this was one we did with the Antler River Guardians from the Four Directions, which were a group of Indigenous youth who are kind of bridging Indigenous ways of thinking and knowledge with more Western and scientific ways of kind of looking at sustainability and ecological justice. So we also do cleanups with local businesses if they're interested in doing that. So we do tons of, we do these cleanups, and like I said, we do about 10 to 15 a year. Sometimes we do more than one in a month. We try to respond if someone sends us an email and says, hey, we found a lot of garbage down at the Forks today. We sometimes do a little pop-up cleanup that weekend and invite our volunteers. And if you're interested, we can get your name on an email list and also introduce you to our website and our social media. So I just wanted to talk about, so we're a group that thinks that basically direct action and getting your hands into the river is a way to begin addressing the many, many problems that our waterways face. And so it's great to kind of like get your hands dirty and be actively involved in cleaning up the river, but it also will introduce volunteers to some of the bigger problems that the river faces, and kind of we're able to kind of like help people bridge their knowledge, but also put them in contact with other groups that are working on those challenges. So, you know, what are the challenges? I'll just go over them briefly, and I'm sure they won't be a surprise to many of you. I always use this image of a shopping cart because to me it's very symbolic of a real problem that we have with our garbage, litter, and unsustainable consumer culture. We pick up so much plastic out of the river. And as you know, these plastics go downstream, they become microplastics, and they end up in our rivers and our lakes. And our Great Lakes right now have, some of the recent studies show that we have as much microplastics in our Great Lakes as we do in the ocean. And we know that millions of tons of garbage are going into our oceans every year. So how do you address a big problem like that, one that seems so overwhelming when you know that there's a garbage patch in the middle of the Pacific that's just getting bigger and bigger every year? Well, you address it by its source, by cutting that, not letting that garbage get into the water in the first place. So that's one of the things that we do. I generally find, or I think you probably find too, that our environmental issues can sometimes seem overwhelming, and it's like, where do I begin? And so we offer a place to concretely begin. So we see plastics, of course, getting into the environment and, impacting at every single level. This is a bird's nest that we found by the river last year. And as you can see, it's been made almost with 50% of it is plastic pieces, right? So we all see images of how these plastics are getting into our environment. And of course, COVID has only made the situation worse. We were just we were just beginning the process of maybe weaning ourselves off single-use plastics, but COVID, of course, through health protocols, we went right back to plastics. We needed to, but now we're picking up medical waste, masks, all these kinds of things in the river. And of course, this is a major concern. I know that Natalie is going to talk about fishing gear in her presentation. This is a disturbing photo of a osprey, a kind of fish hawk that is dead, hung by its neck by fishing wire from Adelaide Bridge here in London, Ontario. We did a cleanup the next day, and I collected all of the fishing gear, asked volunteers to just kind of, bring me all the gear, discarded gear that they found. And of course, all of this stuff that is in my hands poses a real threat to the wildlife, the vibrant wildlife, as Deepika pointed out, that inhabit that river. And so this is, in terms of making immediate impacts, this kind of work is great for that, because we can get this stuff out of the river and hopefully help make sure that it is clean and safe for animals. Of course, we are in the middle of a national opioid and mental health crisis, and we see that down at the river quite a bit. We are, and so we are trained in recovering medical waste. Handing out of needles is part of a harm reduction strategy that we very much support in the city. But unfortunately, sometimes those needles end up near our waterways. So this is one of the areas that we've worked on. We've worked with the city to establish permanent needle bins and advocated for permanent needle bins along the river's course. And that has diverted thousands of needles from the water, which is of course very important because, as Deepika mentioned, we live upstream from various communities, including Thames, Oneida, and Muncie, Delaware, and the garbage that ends up in our river flows downstream. and pollutes their water. Their water, and of course, Chippewa and Oneida are currently on boil water advisories, and so that's something we really want to work towards, is raising environmental awareness about ecological justice. Homelessness, of course, we're in a homelessness and housing crisis in this country and in this city. And again, we see the effects of that down at the river. Folks don't have places to affordably live. And so a lot of people are camping rough, and there's garbage associated with that because we, unlike us, people who have stable housing, we don't have people who appear to take away our garbage every week. So these are some of the issues that we address, as well as illegal dumping, man-made obstructions or human-made obstructions like dams that affect the water quality. And so we advocate around that, go to City Hall, make presentations, talk to people, and of course, raw sewage in our river. We are still dumping raw sewage in our river during high rainwater events because our sewer system is so old. It's currently being fixed, but we are still dumping water into the river, or sorry, dumping sewage into the river. So we are working on that issue and pushing on that issue as well. So these are some of the bigger issues, of course. And then, of course, phosphorus and algae blooms. The Thames, or Antler River, runs through a lot of agricultural spaces where it picks up phosphorus from farm runoff, and that phosphorus concentrates in Lake St. Clair, Lake Erie, where algae blooms can happen, kill fish, make water not potable. So that's another issue that we kind of talk about. Of course, habitat loss, deforestation, wetland loss, these are all water issues that affect everyone, especially in an age of increasing climate instability. These habitat, forests, wetlands are all buffers against climate change and climate instability. So there's a little toad to remind me that my time is up, and who this is, and why we are doing this work. We are Antler River Rally. We began this Thames River Rally, and we changed our name to Antler River Rally because we wanted to acknowledge that the original name, one of the original names of the river, Dashkanzibi or Askunisipi, meaning antlered river, that we're working not only to restore names, but we want to restore the health of that river back to the state it was before colonization. So that's part of the work we do and the focus. And I'm at 12 minutes, so I'm over my time, but I just want to put in a little plug. We're doing a cleanup this Saturday. The information is on our website, antlerriverrally.ca. 9:30, we're meeting in the Thames Park parking lot, and we supply the gloves, the garbage bags, the picker-uppers, the safety protocols, and you provide the muscle, and we work for as long as you want to work. You know, sometimes people come for half an hour, 15 minutes, an hour and a half, and we'll do a cleanup. And if you are at all artistic, we also are holding a river cleanup and creativity contest, which you can read more about on our website or on Len's website, because we're doing this in partnership with the fabulous London Environmental Network, who are making this creativity contest possible. So thanks everyone for your attention, and I'm a little over time, but I think I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks so much, Tom. That was really insightful, and yeah, we really need to work on protecting the Thames River and doing our part. And I think your organization does a fantastic job at doing that and emphasizing that. So thank you so much for presenting tonight. If anyone has any questions, feel free to either use the raise hand function in reactions or use the chat. So I'm just going to give a minute to see if anyone has any questions.
I see Mary Ann has her hand up.
Awesome. Okay, Mary Ann, go ahead.
My question is, I know, Tom, that you have redone a number of these areas in London over and over throughout the years. Have you seen a change in what's in the water, or do you see that over time there's less and less there, or is it sort of you're just kind of keeping up with?
We're trying to keep up. I fear that we're falling behind. You know, we're a group that wants to put ourselves out of business. I mean, that would be amazing if Antler River Rally had to close and because we just couldn't find any garbage to clean up. But unfortunately, every time we go to the river, we find stuff, and we're finding more. And a lot of that has to do with some of the social issues surrounding the river, but it also, I think, more has to do with you know, when you would think we would be hitting the brakes on kind of consumerism and single-use plastics, we're hitting the gas pedal. And a lot of people, I think, mistakenly think that this is a litter problem. It is. Some people are careless with their litter, but it really is a production problem. We are producing far more waste than we can get into our landfill sites than we can even handle. If you can just imagine how many recycling bins a night get flipped over due to, you know, wind or animals, and where those bottles go and end up, everything in London heads to the river. So in some ways, yes, we do have to make people more kind of environmentally conscious about their individual decisions and not litter. But I also have this feeling that it is, I'm certain of it, that it has to do with how much we produce and the way that we consume. So yeah, we're trying to keep up with it. But as you said, Marianne, we go back to, you know, we've done Carfrae Park, for example, 3 times already this year.
Thanks so much, Tom. We'll see if there's any other questions.
See, Graham had his hand up there.
Yeah, I have my hand up. Tom, thank you for just an excellent talk. I mean, in 12, 15 minutes, you covered so many issues here in London and related to the river. And you did it all with a smile on your face, which I congratulate you for, as I myself got further and further kind of depressed about the situation. I mean, I don't have really any question other than obviously it's a big problem, and that work you've been doing is appreciated by me.
Thank you, Graham. I appreciate your comment, and that is one of the things that I think that everyone in the environmental sector, you know, deals with, is sometimes feeling overwhelmed or feeling like it's a Sisyphean task where you're just rolling the ball up the hill and then it comes down again. And I found that one of the ways that keeps me balanced, and my partner as well, is the more we talk to people and the more people are made aware of it and the more people come down and share that work with us, it feels like the load gets lighter and lighter the more people who are kind of doing it. And just even acknowledging it and saying things like you just said. So I really appreciate your comment.
No problem. I do have one question, I guess, and that is, have you, I'm probably sure, and explored, because when I look at this garbage and I see people that are homeless on the street, I really feel it's a political issue to potentially push it. And, you know, you can rally all the manpower, but I really feel that everybody in London is obligated, and therefore it's a city problem. I feel where the resources from the city itself, the taxpayers' dollars, to just having these clean up. Because when I look at, you know, you cleaning up this stuff, I think, you know, this really should be professionals. I mean, like you said, we have people every week come and take away huge amounts of garbage. Why don't we have professionals going along the river and cleaning it up too somehow?
I think that, Graham,
yeah.
I think that's a great point. And what I would say to that is that I think that at every level we need engagement, and what you're pointing to is upstream. And that's political. That's when you're, people are knocking on your door, and, you can get your hands in the river and clean up some garbage. And then the other thing you can do is when someone comes knocking on your door for your vote, you say, what is your position on, addressing the housing shortage in London? And I think that's what you're pointing to is we need not only just people who are picking up garbage, we need policy changes at every level of government. Having run for the Green Party as a candidate in the last, that was what my thoughts were, was like, I've been doing this kind of, and I'm only bringing that up right now because I was thinking at that time, we need these bigger solutions. And I was really focusing on the macro. And now since that election, I've gone back to the micro, but I think that your points are really important in terms of upstream, downstream solutions.
Thanks so much for your questions, guys. I wish we could get to the other questions, but you could email Tom after the session if you have any follow-up questions for him. But with that, I'll introduce our next speaker, Natalie. So Natalie is a 15-year-old high school student who has created her own nonprofit, Nautical Waters, which is dedicated to repurposing lost and discarded fishing gear to prevent it from ending up in our oceans and landfill. So I'll pass it off to Natalie to explain more about what she does in her organization.
Yeah, so as Deepika said, my name's Natalie, and I'm just gonna share a presentation with you guys. And so what I'm gonna do today is kind of just tell you guys what Nautical Waters is, what we do, and how we started. So last year, when I was in grade 9, I was enrolled in a STEM course. So it was very math and science focused, and we were evaluated for the most part based on projects we had to do throughout the semester. And the last project I had to do was a passion project. So it could really be about anything we wanted, but had to fall under certain criteria for each subject. So I decided to create an underwater speaker that would be attached to the side of a fishing boat, and it would emit the sound of an orca. So here's just a picture of it. This was just a small prototype of it, and up here is just a reel that I had to make as part of my technology portion. But in theory, this would be attached to the side of a fishing boat, and the sound of an orca would scare away larger animals like dolphins and sharks away from the swimming boats so they wouldn't become bycatch. And for my math portion, I had to create a line graph based on information that I had found that was related to my topic. And while I was doing my research, I found out about discarded fishing rope, and also known as ghost gear. So for those of you who don't know, ghost gear is like fishing rope, fishing gear that ends up in our oceans either from uncontrolled weather or it just gets dumped into our oceans, and it completely destroys our marine ecosystems. As we can see right here is a picture. It's quite graphic. The majority of it is fishing gear, and as we can see, the turtle's just trying to swim, but it's going to be quite difficult because the fishing gear is pulling it down. And while I was doing my research, it was honestly just really heartbreaking, in my opinion, because I had no idea what this was even going on. Because I feel like we all hear about plastic pollution, like water bottles and straws, which are important and they should be talked about, but no one really knows about ghost gear. And I think that's because for the most part, it's under the surface and not everyone sees it. So I decided to create a change, and I created Nautical Waters. So yeah, as we can see here, it takes thousands of years for ghost gear to degrade, and just plastic in general. And here's kind of a short infographic about kind of the ghost gear cycle. As we can see, for the most part, actually, the ghost gear kind of just stays here at the bottom, doesn't really come up. Yeah, so going on into my first step in the process was reaching out. So I reached out to universities, different marine biologists, Justin Trudeau's office, Bernadette Jordan, which is the Minister of Fisheries and Oceans, and the Global Ghost Gear Initiative for Help. And at first, I was really concerned and worried that people were kind of just gonna dismiss me as, you know, like a 15-year-old going through a phase. But I couldn't be more wrong. Everyone was super helpful, and they took time out of their day to help me with my project, which I really appreciate. So we do have 12 different partners in total, and some of them send us rope like this, discarded fishing gear, that either they pull out from the ocean, or they find on the shore, or even that's about to go to landfill. And what we try to do is repurpose it kind of in household items that you could see daily. So here's just some examples of what we have. So we have different bowls and baskets that are made out of lobster rope. We have these bait bag lanterns, which are made from discarded bait bags. We also have various kinds of art, which are kind of made out of a mix of materials. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, but in the right-hand corner, we have kids' educational activity boxes, which contain different types of materials and are focused on educating children kind of more about ocean pollution, but more specifically the ghost gear crisis. And then we also have different types of jewelry. Bracelets is just one of the examples. So here are our environmental partnerships. So we have Coastal Action and Scotian Shores, and also our friend George, which is from the east coast of Canada, and they send us rope. We have Emerald Sea Protection Society, which is on the east coast in British Columbia. We have Great Sea Project, which is a new partnership. They're from South Andros Islands in the Bahamas, where some of you might know that's where Island of Brian is, if you watch HGTV. And then we also have Cape Breton Fish Harvesters Association, which, as you can probably guess, is from Cape Breton, and they're a newer partnership, and they just sent us some rope, so I'm excited to see what we can make from that. And then on here, we also have the London Environmental Network. And some of our retail partners include Unwrapped Marketplace, The Hive, Modern Maple, Purdy Naturals, and Niche Boutique. So here's also kind of just another short infographic. Our 1-year anniversary is coming up fairly soon. So 12 partnerships. In total, we have over 1,000 social media supporters. We've made over 400 different products. We have repurposed over 400 kilograms of ghost gear, and we have donated over $2,500 back to our environmental partnerships. And if you have any more questions or you just want to find out more, you can go to our website, which I have a feeling will probably be mentioned at the end of today's seminar, or you can email me at nauticalwaters@yahoo.com.
Thank you so much, Natalie. Yeah, I didn't know what ghost gear was until your organization. And it's just crazy like how much there is of it. And it just shows, like, your organization shows like it's never too early or too late to make a difference. So I really enjoyed having you speak at our event today. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
And I'll open the floor to questions if anyone has any. And okay, well, I have a question actually. I was wondering, like, I know Nautical Waters is new, but I was wondering if there was like a project that you did in the past year that you were really proud of. So yeah.
So do you mean like what kind of project in a way, like Nautical Waters focused project, or?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's been pretty difficult with COVID, but recently we've been reaching out to the Coast Guard near the Great Lakes, because we all live in London, I'm assuming, for the most part. We live fairly close to the Great Lakes, and I really think that if I was able to make a change kind of on a smaller scale, starting with the Great Lakes as opposed to the ocean, because, you know, it's a kind of a large vicinity to cover for a smaller organization. So we've been reaching out to the Coast Guards and the fishermen and women up there, wondering if they would be interested in creating kind of these rope recycling bins. So instead of discarding of their fishing gear into the ocean or into our landfills, we can put them in these bins and people can reuse it in various different kinds of way, or different organizations can use it as well.
Wow, that's really cool. Yeah, thank you for sharing. We have some questions in the chat. So Lella asks, Natalie, who creates the products? Is that done by volunteers?
So as of right now, we are fairly new. So it's kind of just a family run thing right now. So it's me, my mom, and my grandmother for the most part, 3 different generations. But soon we are looking to kind of expand a little bit more and having some more volunteers.
We have another question from Marianne Hodge. She asks, do you get much fishing gear from the Great Lakes, or is your focus the ocean?
So right now, most of our gear is from the ocean because there aren't many groups focusing on getting discarded fishing gear from our Great Lakes, but we hope to tackle the Great Lakes in our rope recycling program.
Cool. Does anyone else have any questions for Natalie? Tom, go ahead.
And Natalie, that was a fantastic presentation, and so impressed with what you've been able to do in 1 year. It's amazing. I just wondered, two questions. Is there ways that people can donate to your organization? And my second question is there anything that can be done? Is there art that can be made with fishing line and or hooks or spinners or lures? We find lots of them, and they're kind of neat looking. And I'm just wondering, is there anything that can? I'm wondering about just like rod and reel gear.
So as for your art question, I haven't been able to make any art as of yet. Well, I haven't really gotten any. Sorry, there's a fly. Any hooks. But we do get quite a few gill nets, which is like kind of similar to fishing line. And we have been able to make some art out of that. And sorry, I forgot what your first question was, if you remember it.
Yeah, I just wondered, do you have a, are people able to donate to your organization?
Oh, yeah. So on our website, you'll find a donation area, as well as in our social media pages, which are linked in our website. There's also a GoFundMe.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Awesome. So I don't see any more questions, but thank you so much, Natalie, for sharing. It's really cool how much you were able to get done in just a year, and just spreading awareness is really important. So yeah, with that, I will introduce our last speaker for the night, Peter Model from Alice Middlesex. So Peter splits his time between Alice Middlesex Program Coordinator and Land Stewardship Technician with Lower Thames Valley Conservation Authority, and is passionate about all things outdoors and improving the natural environment in Southern Ontario. And with that, I'll pass it over to Peter.
Thanks, Deepika. I'll just get my screen shared here and get my presentation ready for you guys. Yeah, so as Deepika mentioned, I'm the program coordinator for the Alice Middlesex program. We're really excited to be part of this Protecting Our Waterway webinar tonight with the London Environmental Network, and share about some of the volunteer opportunities we have. We've been part of the London Environmental Network since 2019. It's been a really great partnership so far. So tonight I'm just going to give a little bit more information about who Alice Middlesex is and what we do. And then talk about the different ways you can get involved. So just some background. we're a farmer-run program aimed at farmers. So it's a program that farmers take advantage of. And we work with different landowners in the Middlesex County to establish natural restoration projects on their farmland. So we're all about making spaces greener and improving the environment and looking at local environmental issues like the quality of the Thames River and the surrounding Great Lakes, as well as making sure there's lots of wildlife habitat for all the creatures that live around here. So really, we're hoping from these different projects, we do wetland creation, reforestation projects, and native prairie planting. And from these, we hope to get ecosystem services. So this can be benefits that we receive from the environment. So things like flood prevention. So wetlands can soak up a lot of water during times of high rainfall, or carbon sequestration from reforestation projects. As part of our program, every acre that's enrolled, we provide an annual acre payment to the farmer. And this just really helps place a value on the ecosystem services that we're receiving from the environment. So our main focus is marginal farmland. So we're looking at converting marginal farmland to these different natural restoration projects. So a little bit about what qualifies a piece of farmland into marginal. Marginal farmland is areas of the farm that aren't really productive anymore, or takes a lot more work to farm it than just to leave it be. So some examples of this is this picture I have here, combine stuck in a wet piece of the field. So if you're spending probably your whole day trying to get that combine out and wrecking your field at the same time, maybe you don't want to farm that anymore. So that'd be something that's marginal. Some other examples are areas that are really steep terrain or sloping. Often these are affected by erosion, so from rainfall, and a lot of the topsoil is washed away. So it's not really productive to farm anything there anymore. You're paying for the seed and fertilizer and nothing comes up. So it's not really a great use of money or time. And the third category of marginal farmland that we see a lot is the area is too small for modern agricultural equipment. So a lot of southwestern Ontario, these fields were created before our tractors were modern and pretty big. So they are quite small. And now with modern equipment, they don't really fit in there anymore. So that's another reason people retire their piece of marginal farmland. So what do we do with these marginal pieces of farmland? We look at managing them differently. So typical management right now would be planting corn, and that's the crop that's grown, or planting soybeans or some other type of food product. So what we want to do is create an alternative crop, an ecosystem. So if we put in a wetland or a reforestation project or a prairie planting, it's going to produce cleaner air or cleaner water, things like that. The other part of this is when you have a really wet spot, you might decide to tile it instead. And you can spend, I've seen many times, countless hours, countless days, and thousands of dollars trying to just tile this 1 acre to get rid of that water. And maybe a better thing to do would just put in a wetland there. If the ground's wet, let it be wet, and create a wetland that's going to provide benefits not only to that farmer, but to the surrounding community as well. And all these projects, we're looking at addressing environmental and landscape needs. So when designing a project, we look at the surrounding landscape and see what's a priority there. As I was saying with wetlands, if it's a wet spot, a wetland creation is always the first thing that comes to mind. But when you're looking at the broader landscape in southwestern Ontario, you'll see you won't see much natural cover. And what is natural cover? It's very fragmented and disconnected. So we look at these things and we try to connect them with different reforestation projects or prairies, and just create an ecosystem that really benefits everybody. Here's just an example of a typical project we have. This was done back in 2019. This area in the red is the project, and in this corner over here, you can see the Thames River. So this field was just a little too small to farm anymore. He spent more time turning his tractor around than he did doing any work. And this section right here was always wet, so he hasn't been farming it recently because his tractor would just get stuck. So those are the reasons this qualified as marginal farmland. And I just have a before or an after picture here for you. So using the natural features of the landscape, this area was excavated and enhanced to create a wetland. So it was really cool to see. There was frogs and tadpoles, dragonflies and birds all using this space just a couple short weeks after it's created. And this wetland is going to provide benefits to the Thames River. It's going to help improve water quality, hopefully. So this is another agricultural field here on the bottom. So any agricultural runoff or sediment, it just can go into that wetland, and it's going to trap that sediment, keep it from going into the natural water course. And same with the phosphorus. That phosphorus will be taken up and used by the plants in the wetland. And then behind it, it's about a 1 acre parcel of land, and that farm field was just planted with native Carolinian trees. So a pretty cool reforestation project. And the purpose behind that reforestation project was just to provide more habitat. So you notice a lot of deer and turkey in the area, as well as kind of connect it. So you can see it just expands the current forest that's there and provides an even bigger buffer between the watercourse and agricultural activities. So different ways you can get involved. Our volunteer opportunities aren't posted at a set time, but they do come up every once in a while. So if you are interested, please just let me know, or we advertise this with the London Environmental Network too, so we can get you on a list. And I'll have to be honest, just like Tom said, you'll need your muscle for these. A lot of labor intensive, and a lot of it has to do with planting. So this first one here is tree planting. So a lot of our projects are tree planting, and right here, this is a pretty big project. It's about 5 acres, but we had a group out this spring helping to plant that. And tree planting usually happens in the spring and the fall, and it's just a great way to get outside and be involved and work with some other people doing good work. Another one here, we actually worked with the London Environmental Network this spring to enhance a prairie buffer along the Thames River on Chippewa, the Thames. So you can see in this first picture, there's just some prairie plugs. So these are little plants from native grasses and flowers, and it's just going to really help to diversify this area, stabilize the fragile banks of the Thames, and create a buffer between agricultural activities, and just really help out. Another one is vegetative aquatic planting. So with our wetland creations, there's a lot of earthworks involved, and the ground's barren afterwards. There's always a seed bank in the soil when it's disturbed, so plants will come up, but planting these aquatic plants really just helps jumpstart and speed along the succession of the project. So these usually happen in the summer, shortly after the wetland is created. And our last volunteer opportunity is field monitoring. Probably a really exciting one, and it's something if you're interested in getting out for hikes and observing nature, seeing different species, things like that, this could be a good one for you. So every year as part of our program, we go and visit each and every one of our ALICE projects just to check on the health of the project and see what species are there. So it's really cool to see a barren field grow over a couple of years and see everything that's moving in. So if you're interested in this, just let me know, and you can come out. We're always interested in seeing what moves in, and it's really valuable information to have, and it helps validate the work we're doing and show us what we should do more of, or what works and what doesn't work. Some examples here are looking for bird species. So there's an eastern meadowlark. It's a species at risk, but it made home on our delayed grazing project. And over here, there's another bird box full of wood duck eggs. So counting those in the spring is a cool way to be involved too. That's all I got for you tonight. I have my email up there for you. I forgot to put my website on there, but maybe it can be provided later. So if there's any questions, I can take them now. And if you're interested in volunteering, just let me know and we can get you on the list.
Thanks, Peter. It's really interesting just to hear about like ways we can help preserve our wetlands, farmland, prairies, and different kinds of opportunities that you have. So thank you so much for sharing. So the floor is open now to questions, if anyone has any. Yeah. I just saw Matthew, would you like to ask me a question?
Sure, thank you. First of all, thank you, Peter. Thank you so much for the presentation. It was really great. I was kind of curious. So I know that these projects, they take place in more like agricultural regions. In terms of wanting to volunteer there, how, I guess, accessible is it by someone who maybe doesn't have a car?
Right, yeah. Thanks, Matthew, for your question, for listening tonight. Yeah, so all our projects usually are on agricultural land, so they are out in the country, as you say. But there's lots of opportunities to carpool. So when we advertise with the London Environmental Network, lots of members from that usually come out to these volunteer opportunities. And yeah, if you're interested, I'm sure we can figure out a way to get you there.
Great, thank you so much.
Thanks, Matthew, for asking a question. Does anyone else have any questions? Graham?
Sure. How many projects like that? A fantastic project, nice talk, interesting, great initiative. How many sort of pockets of land do you get that like successful, and sort of what is, I guess, in terms of how many you have, but also what is limiting you to doing more? Is it, say, for one, farmers providing you the opportunity to transform that land, or is it volunteers, or is it, what would it be?
Yeah, good question, Graham. Thanks for that. So last year we did about 90 acres of projects throughout Middlesex County. We started out in 2017 and sort of just ramped up starting in 2019. So we've been getting more interest. Yeah, like you said, one of the limitations is really just getting the word out there and changing mindsets from managing that land differently. So there's a lot of work to be done that way, and that's probably one of our biggest limitations. Is but it's also an opportunity to educate and to get to know farmers and talk to them about these things.
Cool.
Thank you, Graham. I see Matthew has another question. Would you like to ask it, or if it's...
Sure, sorry. Did anyone else have another question before I answer? Because I already asked a question.
Marianne Hodge didn't ask a question yet, so I think I'll let her ask hers.
Thanks. Maybe just a little bit too much off topic, but I was just wondering whether any of your work overlaps with some of the current discussions around regenerative farming and adding more carbon and such to the soil, and whether that impacts your work at all.
Yeah, definitely. Regenerative farming is a topic that usually comes up. So a lot of our participants in the ALGE program are really interested in that. So it is kind of new to us, but I think a lot of the projects that we do really tie into the regenerative model. So improving soil quality over a long time. One of the programs we have is a delayed haying program or delayed grazing program. So that kind of just encourages the use of having pasture lands versus cash crops. So that just keeps the roots in the soil longer and builds up soil health again. And same with all our projects, tree planting or prairie projects. They're incorporated into a lot of these regenerative farming and taken as part of the agricultural practices on the farm. And they're all going to be benefiting the environment and soil health and water health on the farm.
Thanks so much. So unfortunately, that's all the time we have for questions. But Matthew, I know you had another question. If you want to follow up with Peter, by contacting him through email. That would be great. So I'm just going to share my screen. Just to wrap up here, if you'd like to stay connected or hear more about London Environmental Network's events, volunteer positions, and more, you can follow us on social media or sign up for our newsletter, or both if you want. And here are the emails of the inspiring speakers who joined us today. So if you weren't able to ask them a question and would like to connect with them, don't worry if you don't have a pen and paper handy right now. I will be sending you this information after the workshop. So I just want to say thank you so much for joining us this evening. I hope you all learned about ways you can get involved in our community to protect our waterways. I also just want to highlight that just because a volunteer position isn't on our volunteer page on our website, it doesn't mean you can't reach out to an organization. Figure out what kind of position you'd like and reach out to some organizations. With that, thank you so much for attending tonight, and I hope you all have a good night. Thank you.